Something tastes this good, like you would think for something to have opiates and all that shit, and it'd be nasty.
Yeah.
But you put that shit in some Sprite, and it's heaven in a cup.
That feels fucking awesome.
Hey people, I'm not sure if anybody's gonna see this. I shouldn't. I guess maybe I shouldn't have done it live. But I got my new uh, I got my new banner in, and let's see here. Here we go. Let's see if anybody's here. Okay. So I got my new banner in, and besides that, I am out of YouTube jail. Hey, Mikey Smith. Hey, Mike. So anyway, I'm out of YouTube jail. Please subscribe to my other YouTube channel. It's Zoom Truth Space and then Live, Zoom Truth Live. Hey, Ricardo. Because I think I might. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might just like turn off this main channel for a while, or I might uh, I don't know what to do because I just don't want to freaking get my channel totally turned off. Hey, what's up, Red Pill Paul? So, couple things. I have this is my new banner that I made for like the Illuminati stuff. I thought it came out pretty good, and I want to say if anybody like wants to have like my banner, any of my banners, like I don't know, give me a heads up. They're not that expensive. I can't spend too much money on them, but I can get some out to people. If they're if they want to change part of it, like rather than subscribe to Zoom Truth, I can change it to subscribe to whatever channel that you would want. But yeah, the main reason that I wanted to do this is because I could actually go live today, and it was so I wanted to get mentioned right away because I really haven't done that to have people, maybe spread the word about my Zoom Truth Live channel. Also, yeah, Trump is on there too, right? Here you go. So there's Trump. That's pretty close to like he didn't really do it. It's on the sides, but it's pretty freaking close. So the other thing is that the Flat Earth People Finder app is up and running and is working on Apple iPhone. It's off to a little bit of a slow start because it's just on Apple. It's almost ready for Android. We're still ironing out a few little bugs there. So if you can, please consider getting on there and taking taking part. I'm actually what did I want to say? I'm doing the I love this one. I'm doing a like a freedom rally tomorrow. Look at the snake, the freaking Vatican Hall, man. That's crazy. So I'm doing the whatchamacallit, the Vatican. Oh no, not the Vatican. I'm sorry. The a freedom rally tomorrow. I'm going to call it a freedom rally. And I found these signs. Right? They have nothing to do with me. So these, I think they'll have. Oh, actually, it shows my channel on there. It's funny somehow my channel got on there. But so I have like 20 of each of these. So if anybody is in the Sarasota area, I think I'll even make another video today on it. But anybody who's in the Sarasota area who wants to come out, I have.
And you see this with dogs, you see this with like half Koreans, half whites, and so on. But there's also something that happens when like
I'm just eating dinner, so I won't be real talkative.
Ghost and I have God, so I can just ignore Paul and I'll be okay.
Didn't
right?
Jesus Christ appear to Paul?
I can still ignore Paul. God appeared to Moses, and Moses still did wrong. So what does it matter if Jesus Christ appeared to Paul?
So when
God said,
Concrete, have you read the Bible?
God said,
dichotomy means those are the only two choices that you have, right? That's what you're trying to say.
Okay, well, propose some other choice. If it's not those two that you don't know which to select from, then put forth a third.
I introduced different choices. I said some people.
You're
are we
thinking about
kicking
it
out
wrong.
the people that? Well, then are we kicking out the?
Hold on. It's either A or not A.
Okay, so it's a true dichotomy means there's absolutely no way there's any other choices. And so, are we kicking out the other possible choices, like people that believe in multiple gods? Are we kicking those choices out?
That would still be intelligent life form. It's not like based on religion. It's an argument for theism. You're getting it confused with argument for Pacific gods. It's just an argument for theism.
Yeah, and because there are people out there that believe like different things. Like there's people that believe
but it's not
that
a
the God's
certain.
the
It's not.
universe.
You're
There's
not
people that believe
understanding.
It's not disputing that. It's just saying every religion still believes that there's some form of intelligent life that created the universe. So it's not an argument for Pacific religion. It's just an argument for theism.
Right.
Yeah, and also if there's also people that believe that we were created by
You're
aliens.
ignoring his answer, and you're just going right along.
But he
It's either
said,
A or not A.
but they've been saying to me, well, what other options are out there, right? If it's not a true
Free fruit, but
dichotomy.
anytime you invoke a creator or an intelligence, then you're invoking something that is a dichotomy, because the dichotomy that I keep presenting to you is intelligent agency versus no intelligent agency, by which everything is. So so these are the only two options. If there's a third option, present it.
Yeah, and why is telling someone that you do not know not an option?
Great. You don't know from the dichotomy I just presented which to select from. But if there's a third one that you don't know to select from, then present it.
Yeah, like you're saying, though, there's only two. You're claiming there's only two options to
I
choose
put
from.
forth two, and you said you don't know which one. You don't know. So if you don't know which one to choose from the two, and you believe perhaps there could be a third, then what do you postulate could be the third? Give me something.
I'm stopping at I don't know.
Right. What do you know? Tell me what you do know.
I know that I'm a conscious sentient being. That's what I know.
So how do you know that you're a conscious sentient being?
Because of my it's based off of my reality.
Okay, so you're either a conscious sentient being or you're not, right?
Yeah, based off of my
So would you
reality.
say that's a dichotomy?
Yeah, and I would say that
Great. So
I
therefore you cannot argue against, because you're saying you're a sentient conscious being that invokes intelligence, or you're not. That invokes no intelligence, that you're not in existence. Therefore, you cannot speak against the dichotomy presented with regards to all that is, which is intelligence or not intelligence, because you're invoking one with regards to yourself. So therefore, you cannot say that the other cannot be with regards to intelligence in general. Because you've just refuted your own argument that the dichotomy we're putting forth is not a true dichotomy.
well,
Because you just
can you rephrase the dichotomy
invoked
again,
a
please?
dichotomy, and you made the case with regards to having intelligence and not having intelligence. So you can no longer say, well, I simply don't believe. I hold the position I don't believe, because you've just defeated your argument there. You have to hold, with regards to our previous example of intelligent agency with regards to all that is, or not intelligent agency with regards to all that is. Now,
Yeah,
which is
I'm the one with the intelligence, right? Like I have my own.
Yo, just wanted to make sure your discretion. Hello? Are you there, man?
To the Shadow Realm, Yugi.
Away with you!
Kaiba, no!
You're supposed to do quarantine-temp, not quarantine. Coursey. Oh, he's not even here.
Concrete is always so angry.
He's grumpy. He's got his grumpy pants on. But appreciate the compliment there, Mr. Gunslinger.
Hey, my girlfriend got home.
I find it ironic that concrete is dense.
What does quarantine mean?
Means he has COVID.
he just messaged me and told me I'm.
Chris Ryan, not just a Philly guy, but that's why we have him. That's an old joke. That's an old insider joke. Chris Ryan joins the podcast. Do you remember what that was from? Like Bill,
no, what's
really,
that from?
It was bad. It was when I first come over to the Ringer, and I think we were over in Bill's office, and then it was like, hey, I'd love to come on sometime. And I was like, yeah, maybe like we have like some Sixers thing, a Philly thing for you to come on. And Bill was like, oh,
I think that's what he thinks of me as well too. Just a Philly
no,
guy.
it was really nasty, and I think Bill was like, he liked attention. He
Yeah.
liked attention with that one. Okay, just Blink, quick reaction. How you feeling now? New management, obviously things percolating. We'll get to that, but as of right now, where you were, say, 2 weeks ago.
Well, this is what I kind of was hoping for when Daryl came in, is to kind of undo the stuff that the Brett Brown, Elton Brand administration had done last season. That was sort of a failed attempt to go over the top. It's strange though. So when the Horford deal happened, I was like, I had the same reaction that I had when the Horford deal happened last year, where I was like super excited about it. I was just like, yeah, we're doing it. And I didn't even know what we were doing. And after the whole draft night experience, if you step back, if I told you, yeah, you're going to trade Al Horford and Josh Richardson for Seth Curry and Danny Green, like in a vacuum, you'd be like, well, that seems like a step down. Knowing nothing about how the Sixers played, like those two players seem worse than the two players coming back in. Yet I'm super excited because of what I think it means, not only for the way that they'll play, but the way that they'll be set up in the future.
No, it's a good point, because you just do that. You're like, wait, you're happy? But Horford went from somebody who I've defended his entire career. I think he was so good in Atlanta. And I'm not talking about a number one guy on a top 5 team kind of thing, even though they had that really high seeding that one year and a great regular season record. But he just did a lot of stuff. He did a lot of the cool stuff that didn't show up. I think he even had those moments in Boston. Boston signing him like, this guy's perfect, exactly what you want. And then you're arguing with your friends all the time that maybe aren't the most refined watchers of basketball. I'd be like, no, you don't understand some of the stuff that he's doing. But then when he stopped doing it, it's like, oh. And then the Celtics still wanted him. The Celtics have had a little bit of a weird track record of some of their players the last couple of years, where Kyrie wanted out the entire time. They never thought that, and he did. And I'm saying that now with information that I had somebody sharing with me at the time. He was like, hey, he's not staying. I'm like, no, I think they think he's going to stay, man. I don't. You might be wrong about this one. Of course, when Kyrie leaves, he's like, I told you. He's like, I knew he was always leaving. The Horford deal, and it's not so much not understanding Horford as much as it's like Philadelphia is giving him what?
Yeah.
And then Boston's out, which ended up being the right deal. And then even with this Gordon Hayward stuff, I thought they were a little surprised by it. So my point of this is that once Horford opts out, goes to the Sixers, you kind of miss him, but then you see that big number, but then you see how it plays out. And then it becomes impossible to go, no, you don't understand. Some of the stuff isn't showing up in the box score because it was such a bad fit. And then it went from nice free agent signing to one of the worst 5 contracts in the league. Like, that's kind of how it felt.
Yeah, and it made Simmons and Embiid actively worse. I mean, when you would watch the 3 of them on the court, you're like, this is like a first or second round playoff exit guaranteed. There's just no way. And for fans, it was awful to watch. I mean, it was just bad, boring basketball, and it was really tough to kind of get up for it 55, 65 times a year to, if you were a really dedicated fan making time to watch it. It's just it was just really appalling sometimes on some of those nights. And I think that's what has sort of gotten me fired up is Seth Curry and Danny Green aren't necessarily, the kind of starters that you would expect in like an Eastern Conference Finals or a Finals team. But what it feels a little bit more like is the version of this team that I really loved, which was sort of the Redick, Covington, Saric, Embiid Simmons, which had this mixture of veteran savvy, some journeyman guy, and homegrown players. And it had a kind of like a really fun identity. But that was right before the Jimmy trade, and before the Fultz debacle. But that's kind of where we're at. The Daryl stuff also is interesting because the Sixers have always had all this like transactional frenzy. You know, there were always seemed to be guys coming in and guys coming out. This is the first time that I've actually been like, I bet this person has an actual plan. You know, I bet this person, even if the moves are constant, is going in one direction.
So you're not going to be bragging about 6 second rounders?
No.
I touched on that in the open. I couldn't help myself in a little bit.
Although there's so many guys out there who have become Paul Reed experts overnight.
Yeah, it was just so predictable where I would go, okay, this guy went to a good school and loves that Hinkie has 5 second rounders because it sounds cool. Do you think Elton Brand is visited with Daryl and knocked on the door and was like, hey, you can do all this stuff?
There were some pretty funny jokes about like where Elton's phone line on draft night was going out to. Like, did they give him a phone? He's like, yeah, go ahead and make a call. And it's just like calling an intern down the hallway who's pretending to be like Danny Ainge or Kevin Pritchard or something.
I love the phone call. I actually like talking to people after the draft as much as I do before, because you'll be like, hey, what happened? Like somebody I was talking to yesterday was like, we're trying to call Pat Riley desperately, just didn't answer the phone. You're going, please, like, pick up the phone because you're freaking out about, and that's not specific to Pat Riley. There's other people that would just stop answering phones, and then you realize the person that was calling, it's not like the guy just stopped answering his phone on draft night. It was just that the person who was calling was somebody that person didn't want to answer the phone for anymore. You know, you touched on it here a little bit, what the Sixers were in that season where it turned around, and I was blown away because usually young teams aren't good. I made a horrible prediction. I was like, hey, I just don't think the Sixers are going to be all that good. And then they run off all those games at the end, and then I was like, wait, were they maybe actually not that good? Because, and that's ridiculous because you go from what they were to making the playoffs. That in itself is a massive victory. But they weren't even close in that Celtics series when I thought they had the 2 best players at that time. And they had won a bunch of games at the end of the regular season when everybody's tanking. So sometimes these teams will put together these crazy runs and these great records. And it's like, yeah, but the other teams you've been playing collectively, you look at the schedule, like none of them are trying right now. So that's a little misleading. So when I think of what the Sixers are, it's a bounce away from going to overtime against the eventual champs, which is a weird thing to be like, hey, we were this close. You're like, that was the end of the second round. Okay, that wasn't the Eastern Conference Finals. So when I'll see some of these arguments about what the Sixers really have, Ben, I think it's a remarkable turnaround that kind of worked, followed by a big disappointment. And looking into the future, like if I asked you, hey, do you think if you had to bet a lot of money that it all works out and that the Ben and Joel thing, and Joel's been better shape and Ben develops enough on some of the other stuff, that it all works out? Or we're 5 years ago and remember that Sixers thing and how promising it was, and it ended up like this and both guys are on different teams? Like, what's the safer money bet?
Oh, the safer money is the latter, but I guess the flip is that if I had asked you last November, I'm trying to remember when the actual basketball season started, and I was like,
yeah, October. Man,
Hero and Duncan Robinson, these guys, this is finals team, right? You know, I mean, like, weird shit happens all the time in the NBA now. I think windows close really fast and windows open even faster, and that's why I guess I'm pretty hopeful about this. I don't think that we'll look.
I think windows close fast. I don't know that they open fast.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, like if you look back and see that Brooklyn puts together Kyrie, KD, and Harden, that'll be a pretty that window will be open. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
and
what's a window? What does it really mean? Isn't it just a mechanism to the soul?
That's right.
Go ahead.
It's a institutional state apparatus, man. I don't know. You know, I think that. I'm fully prepared for the likelihood. I was a fan of this team since Barkley, through Iverson,
Tim Perry.
Yeah, you know, like Hawkins and Dawkins. You know, we've gotten close with No Cigar a bunch of times. We've had teams that Philadelphia fans were obsessed with that didn't make it that far. I even liked the Drew Holiday, Andre Iguodala, you know, Evan Turner team under Doug Collins. Like, I'm not really accustomed to like this sort of Lakers Celtics, like, we should be winning championships every year. I mean, I'm used to like upper mediocrity. I think that the whole promise of what the process was supposed to be was like, let's put ourselves in the best position to actually win this thing rather than just like compete every year.
Yeah, I'll tell you straight up, like my first basketball love was that Sixers team in '83, and I love the Sixers being good. They're
Yeah.
kind of the most overlooked Eastern Conference franchise, really. I mean, the Knicks can sit there. I mean, that team was so good in the early '80s, and it's never mentioned as one of the great single seasons. Or, well, I shouldn't say single season, but whenever we talk about like some of the greatest basketball teams of all time, that one's never allowed to be in the conversation, the '82-'83 team, because they're just so overshadowed by what the rest of the run is. Lakers, Celtics,
Yeah.
Jordans, and Pistons, and not necessarily in that order. It's just, of any of the teams, if you were to look back, it would be like this football team having like a number 2 defense, number 1 offense, Hall of Fame quarterback. They go, 15-1, blow out everybody in the playoffs, win a Super Bowl, and you're not allowed to ever mention that they're one of the great teams. So the bigger point is I'm with you, even though Sixers fans drive me crazy. I want that team to be good. I want a nasty Philly atmosphere if we ever get fans back in there, and have it not be this weird thing. And that's what it still feels like. So what are you... Whether this Harden thing happens or not, people really seem to think something's happening here soon. What would you be okay with?
I would have to do a lot of going back through my social media to like magic erase some of my Harden feelings.
Just like Rockets fans when they got Russell Westbrook.
I know.
I mean, those guys had to just start just deleting profiles, forget tweets.
There's a sentimental part of me that really wants to see the Embiid Simmons team with shooters. That is like the version of this team that I think everybody was like, look, man, like when you have these guys on the floor together and they actually have some shooting around each other, these like Daryl said the other day, he's like, these lineups are insane. The lineups when these guys are surrounded by some shooting are insane. And so yeah, like I think there's a part of me that is resistant to the idea of James Harden, even though there is in my brain, I know that if you have a chance to get James Harden at 31, even if it's only for probably 2 years, or you have to, sign him up for this huge contract for like the waning part of his the twilight of his prime, you got to do it. And it would hurt, but it would make sense, and I would probably grow a beard the next day if possible in solidarity with it. But the romantic side of me really wants to see how this works with these two guys.
That, I think, is the right answer, man, because you've had to deal with all of this stuff. You had to deal with those rosters, and yet losing that way and the way you did was actually easier to stomach because everybody was on the same page. So it wasn't like bag on the head Sixers fan deal. It's, hey, no, we're doing this. Like, this is what we're doing. And then it kind of works out because you add 2 franchise guys. Do you have to be an Embiid or Simmons guy? Because that's the funny thing about your city in this fan base. I don't feel like there's that split. Of course it's there, but it's not this passionate, split that we've seen. It's not the Kobe Shaq stuff with the media in LA. I feel like there's more of a combined support for both, and exactly what you said, hoping it works, than this divisive deal where half the city loves one player and hates the other.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, because I think for as much as Embiid seems to have become like the mascot for the city's sports in a lot of ways, and has really kind of taken on a lot of embraced it in a way that like Barkley and Iverson did before. I actually think Simmons is pretty mesmerizing as a player, like on his good nights, and the jump shot aside, which I knew was like saying like walking aside, but the jump shot aside, he's actually like to me in my personal like basketball aesthetic, like my favorite kind of player. Like those hyper athletic, incredible passers who don't really come along very often. And I don't think that the city is particularly like you gotta choose a side. Like if you spend way too much time on Twitter, then yes, like you probably are in an Embiid or a Simmons camp. But yeah, only Philadelphia would do that to ourselves, where it's like you get these 2 generational players and you're like, well, you gotta choose one. You gotta, what team are you on? It's like, well, they're on the same team. Why do I have to choose?
So it sounds like you're cool with them moving Embiid for Harden.
Oh God, I can't believe I would have to do that.
What would you be okay with? I think it's almost impossible. Now, impossible up to the point where I go, whose body type do I like better? Boom. I'd probably, even though I like Embiid a hell of a lot more as a player. And then I've had different times where I'm like, oh no, this guy has it way more figured out. And then I'll be like, wait a minute, does he not have anything figured out?
Right.
And I don't think they get along. I'm pretty confident of that. I feel comfortable sharing.
I'm confident about it too,
yeah,
but
right. Like they don't get along.
Yeah.
And so doesn't mean everybody has to like each other. This isn't semi-pro. You don't have to sit there and and everybody get along and all that stuff. That's not what's getting in the way. Injuries as much as anything.
Yeah.
I would argue, I think Embiid's been healthier than I ever thought he would have been after the start of his career.
Yeah, that's the thing is like people rag on him for the being in shape in the playoff stuff and sometimes disappearing, but like we weren't sure that this guy was ever going to play. You know, he was a little bit of a flyer at 3 when we drafted him, so it's pretty awesome that he's like routinely as healthy and reliable as he is. I guess that's kind of like a weird way of looking at it. You'd expect everybody who said, especially since so much of what's up with him is keeping his own body in shape and not like these crippling back and foot injuries that we were told he might have.
Right. That kind of profile, there really hasn't been a player that has that kind of. Now, granted, they wanted him to not play on purpose, which is all part of it.
Sure.
So he sits out more with Philadelphia than he would probably with a different franchise. So it all kind of worked out. But then you go, all right, then he comes into the third year, plays 30 games, and you're like, yeah, this is going to work out. Like, you're definitely going to want to max this guy twice because this makes a ton of sense. And I like his game better than Ben's. I like what he could be better than Ben's. But if you thought about a fit with Harden, the old version would be, yeah, Harden just dumps it in and then he kicks it back out, little, reset, back out, back in, let's do it. And you're like, actually, no, it would probably be better with Simmons.
Yeah.
In today's NBA, letting Simmons run around like crazy and then throwing it out to Harden, having space and getting Embiid out of there, or Harden having the space to drive and getting Embiid out of there. I think the basketball solution, if it were available, would be to have Harden and Simmons. But I have no idea what Houston's doing. Nobody can get a read on it other than as of late last night, early this morning. It's like, hey, this deal, something's going to happen. And I don't even know if it's necessarily with Philadelphia. It could be the Brooklyn one, and it could be a surprise. Who knows?
I mean, it's so hard for me to believe that Houston would say, oh, okay, so Harden's called his shot to Brooklyn. We can either do exactly what he wanted or we can trade it to the guy who just left us. We can trade him to the guy who neither of these options seem particularly satisfactory.
Say that again, because that makes a ton of sense. For Tita, if you're following any of this insanity over the last few days, wait, the guy that just bailed and now is running the Sixers, you're going to gift wrap Harden to him?
Yeah.
So there's a big push to that. But if you're Fertitta going, okay, you geniuses that think I would make this personal, I'm supposed to take back Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie and some bad Brooklyn stuff, instead of having one of the two Sixers players where I know at least day one I have a new thing to build around in a city where at least I know I have a chance with higher profile NBA guys that aren't immediately unpacking and going, hey, pack my stuff up because I want out of here now in a year too. So I think these are all really important things to factor in. But your Daryl angle on it, I don't know the answer, but I can kind of believe anything.
Yeah. Can't you? I mean, I would think that he's saying all the right things about how he and Doc want to see this version of the team, and they're not looking at it as like, we have to fix this thing in 6 months. And that's been the problem with the Sixers in the past, is I think that they've always been trying through personnel moves to get to another level rather than allowing the team that they have to kind of develop into that. And then the other, I mean, I the thing that keeps me up at night still is just like the Fultz pick. That's going to go down historically. Like, there will be a book of basketball 7.5 that's about that pick and how that pick changed the league.
Would you trade for Fultz if you were available?
Yeah. I'd trade Isaiah Joe for
Fultz. Hey, do not sleep on I love Isaiah Joe. I'm a big guy. You didn't see it in the draft, so I'm a big Isaiah Joe guy over here.
I know.
He's healthy now.
Isaiah, do you like Maxey?
No. Okay. I don't. I could be totally wrong. I think Maxey's somebody that you'd have to watch like 30 games of a season. Toughness, all that stuff. So I'll give him toughness. A coach is going to like him. He's going to do all these things. But here was something alarming. I have this program where I can watch any player in the world, and I can filter it a certain way. You can watch full games. You can watch clips. So if after a couple games, I'll be like, let me look at something specific if it's good or bad. And I would just keep watching him, and I go, And so I was like, I never do this. I'm going to check out his YouTube highlight page because that's like everybody's unbelievable on those. And I watched like a few minutes of his YouTube highlight page, and I was kind of like,
So even adjusting for the Kentucky of it all, and like those guys never seem to look as good as they actually are.
I know that that's out there. I think Kentucky, like Alabama had a stretch where people were going, man, Alabama football, like, a lot of busts there. And you're like, or they have like 13 guys drafted every single year. So Bama had like a nice stretch. They had a weak stretch, and then they had a really good stretch again. And I've heard people do all the Kentucky guys suck in the pros thing. And that's not what I'm doing with Maxey at all, because I think it's a flawed argument. I think it has holes. I think people like saying that about Kentucky.
Sure.
I just thought Maxey was a big, high-profile, 5-star guy in high school. You're running Kentucky's offense. And I just wanted just a little bit more. I wanted something out of him that popped. Where my expect, and this is classic expectation game. Higher expectation for Maxey because of the profile and all that stuff. Isaiah Joe, I go into it like, let me just check out more of this guy. Like,
and
he wasn't highly recruited.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's just lighting it up. And then the numbers dipped in the second year. And I'd ask somebody down at Arkansas, I go, what happened with him? They're like, he took on way more of a responsibility offensively. So, in college, you can see guys have bad shooting numbers, but like they're shooting because the team can be a mess and they're there to bail it out. Where in the pros, there's usually enough players that you're not just bombing away the whole time. And your number at the pros is more reflective of who you are as a shooter. Where in college, I think there are times it can be really misleading, unless you just suck at shooting and you just you have bad numbers.
Did you get a chance, because you were doing all that stuff during draft night? Did you get a chance to see Calipari's uninterrupted 6-minute monologue?
Yeah, I've had him on for those, man. I lived it. I didn't just need to watch it. I've had that monologue given to me in the hallway, on the air, while he's grabbing your fucking arm. You know how like guys stick their thumb into your bicep and it feels like it's peeling off of the bone? He just fucking will grab my fucking arm and he just starts digging his... I love the guy, okay? But it is like... It's just so intense. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, he's actually like... I have a huge soft spot in my heart for him, because he is... the first guy I ever interviewed when I was in 7th or 8th grade. My dad was working at the paper, and he hooked it up so that I could go talk to him before the Atlantic 10 tournament started, because he was staying in the hotel across the street from my high school. So I talked to him from my school paper, and he seriously gave me 25 minutes. It's still like one of the longest interviews I've ever done in my life, was when I was like talking to John Calipari about Temple versus UMass, when I was in middle school or something like that. And he was such a good guy, nice guy. And then watching that video last night, it's like he hasn't changed not changed a bit since then. Is watching that video of him talking about, now let me tell you something. The last time the Doc coached one of my point guards, it was Shea. And I'll go even further back. The assistant coach on the Sixers is Sam Cassell, who took us to the playoffs in New Jersey. And he's just doing this elaborate map where I'm like, what, you had lunch in the same room as John Stockton and those guys won the fucking gold medal? Like, how is this all coming back to you?
Yeah, he's so engaged, but the whole thing a lot like Saban. Like, people would be like, I can't believe you can get Saban on that much. And it wasn't my show as much as he would be on game day all the time. And then Davos Swinney started calling it the Alabama show. So game day would call Dabo and be like, hey, we want to get you on. And be like, oh, the Alabama show? Because Saban was going on it all the time. And Saban would go on, and when anybody that's argued about what Saban's personality is like, I'm like, if you ask the right questions with Saban is awesome.
Yeah.
But Saban also knew, like, okay, Saturday morning kickoff, I'm going to go on this show and I'm going to have my moment where I'm selling the program. I'm selling me, all eyes, all that kind of stuff. And if the most successful college coach in modern history has time to do a full screen, then everybody else should. And that's what Cal is doing. Cal is recruiting every high school kid that is at home that's watching that monologue. And by the way, good, because the draft had its challenges in the broadcast because of the challenges we have as a country. I didn't always love all of the broadcasts. So for Cal to get up there, I mean, I remember when I think they'd lost in the tournament. It was a loaded team, and they had 5 first-rounders. Was it the Daniel Orton draft? I can pull this up now. But he was like, that's the greatest night in Kentucky basketball history. There's a bunch of people being like, probably would have rather had a title, Cal. But
I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Like, I always used to love, like, they would get their ass kicked in the tournament, and then a couple of months later he would be in the Meadowlands or wherever in Jersey at the draft, and he would just be like, again and again, we did it. 4 first-rounders.
It was the Daniel Orton draft. So this is 2010. That's the John Wall draft. So he had
So,
He
yeah,
had
it's some
wall.
kind of like catatonic seizure to me.
Cracked his head in the stone. Oh, did you guys hear that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe they.
Maybe, somebody wants to put forward some kind of argument for God or something. You know what I mean? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, this is a good topic. This is a good topic shift. I would love to not stick to the meta, please.
You're obviously not too informed about philosophy, and you don't know too much about it. So I recognize that, and I'm sorry for laughing at you. But this is the thing. You said I don't know why anything exists at all, right?
Yeah, I have two conclusions I could possibly come to right now. I could follow well, actually, I can follow evolution's idea of how things evolve to what they are, but that still doesn't get me back to how everything started. Okay.
Yeah, but evolution would be step like 10,000, right?
Yeah.
You're starting on step 10,000 instead of step 1.
Free fruit. If you don't know why anything exists at all, how did you rule out God?
Well, the thing is, I'm not saying there is or is not for certainty a God, but right
That's
now,
an indirect denial of God.
well, if you want to say that I'm taking an agnostic standpoint, that's fine, but I'm telling you that there's no way for me to know
That's an indirect
what
denial
started
of God.
it.
Yeah, but
That's
also
an indirect denial of God. And so here's the thing: when you say I don't know, I'm gonna need an explanation to why you or how you rolled out.
That's
God.
an explanation I can't give you, because when you either know something or you don't, and some explanations, for instance, that's like asking me, like if
But
I'm talking.
it's a ridiculous position to take. I don't know what started the universe, but I know that it wasn't God. How did you determine that?
Yeah, well,
Yes,
okay. Here, let me talk to him. Okay, so let me appeal to your intellect. If nothing created something, that doesn't make any sense. And if you say I don't know what created something, wouldn't it appeal to your intellect to say maybe something did create something? Wouldn't that make sense to say that?
Well, you can't say you don't know and also nothing created something, because then you would say that you do know, and you're saying that you do know that nothing created something. So you're making a claim about what created it, right? So you do know. You can't have it both ways. You can't say you don't know, and you can't also say that nothing
Right.
created something. That would be.
But I'm trying to appeal to his intellect by.
Hold on, let me get up. There's multiple ways of formulating it. Let me just get up the website.
I mean, what is a part anyway? Like, it's really just a concept to us. Everything is just there's just a bunch of atoms around. There's space between every nucleus and every atom. So, but we don't say that that's space. So it's really primitive to say that there can't be parts, because there isn't really parts anyway.
All right, let me just get up the.
Bloodless, are you atheist?
Okay.
Nobody knows what my position is on this whole.
Okay, so essentially, there's a few ways we can speak about this, right? First of all, right, all composite.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to get through to that man. Just don't.
You're just saying anything that's physical, right?
Well, or anything that's metaphysical, right? So, for example, I would accept the distinction, let's say, between act and potency, or between essence and existence, right? And those would be
I don't know what that
metaphysical.
means. That sounds like gibberish. The essence thing sounds like gibberish.
So, essence existence is a relative
development, something evolving into something else, right? And well, in a sense, if you understand it from like a Christian perspective, we have something called providence, right? Providence is God's plan for the natural order and creation. And providence says that there's like a sort of like events in history that are occurring and developing, and there's a like continuous evolution towards a grand sort of finale, let's call it. Like let's imagine the universe be a grand sort of story that's concocted by God. And evolution is similar in that it tries to parasitically form a relationship on that concept of providence, but instead of saying, well, there's meaning to the universe and everything happens for a reason, and things are working itself in synchrony towards something. Evolution says that it's all changing, but it's changing into nothing, right? It's just accidental, and accidental means like there's no reason really why it's happening beyond coincidence, right? It's a coincidence, and coincidence means like we have an idea of something, right? Coincidence, it's coinciding with something. What does it coincide with? With something that we would think has meaning, but it really doesn't.
Yeah, okay. But that still doesn't, all of this that you just said, none of that's going to answer the ultimate question, right?
Yeah, but evolution, therefore, like the point is that can you see why, therefore, evolution cannot explain, even in principle, right? It's logically impossible for evolution to explain the origins of
I know it would be, and I'm not making a claim that it's given me a definite answer of God. I'm just saying that it does help me understand where things evolved into what they are today, but it doesn't take me back to the beginning of when everything started. And
evolution just says that everything is changing into something else, but if everything is just pure change, right? If everything is just changing all the time, what is it changing into? Nothing. What is it changed from? Nothing. Right? Because in essence, everything is coincidental. If you're telling me, well, everything is just pure flux, right? There's no underlying reality. There's no. So you're basically telling me that's everything came from nothing.
Yeah, I'm actually not telling you anything. I'm just telling you that that I don't know where everything came from. That just means I don't know. That's very simple. I know it sounds simple, and people they hate it when people say I don't know. But when you don't know something and you wasn't there to understand it, it's okay to say that.
Yeah. Basically, it's okay to say, "Oh, I don't know how everything came into existence, but it's definitely not God."
But we have a better answer than I don't know. Right. And I'm suspicious of this whole evolution thing. Julian Huxley said that Darwin's achievement was to remove the whole idea of God as creator of organisms from the sphere of rational discussion. So I think there's like a sinister plot behind this evolution idea.
Evolution is is Parmenides, right? It's just metaphysical Parmenidean perception of reality. Parmenides. So if you want to understand the origins of evolution, the metaphysical origins, it's back in the pre-Socratics, you had Heraclitus and Parmenides and Zeno, and Heraclitus argued that there was no change, right? Nothing ever really changed. Change was just an illusion, even though our senses tell us one thing, that things are changing, right? The oak becomes the acorn becomes the oak, You have daylight, daylight, and then nighttime. He said that change was impossible because in order for things to change, you have to have something turn into nothing, and because the things that something will change into don't exist, and since they don't exist, therefore they're nothing, right? Something doesn't exist, it's nothing, and something can become nothing. That's just a nonsense, right? So Heraclitus said change was impossible, but then you have Parmenides who said, famous quote from Parmenides, he said that no man can step into the same river twice, which basically saying that if you step into a river and then you step again in the same river the next day, you're not stepping into the same river. It's a completely different river, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's just about these like metaphysical kind of understandings. Well, it's is change real? Obviously it is, right? We know it is. We perceive it. Is this line of chain? Is this chain of causation, right? The something A changing into B, changing into C, changing into D. It's a very simple question, right? It doesn't take high IQ to understand this. This line of causation, does it extend into infinity? Well, if you're saying that it extends into infinity, then the ability for something to change only comes from something else, right? Think about anything, right? In order for that thing to actualize the potential for something has to happen. Something has to make it actual, right?
And it's impossible for me to understand infinity. My mind, as a human,
infinity just means no end. It just means no end. It just like think about the word itself. Infinito, so without end, right? It doesn't end.
Yeah, and for me as a human, if there's something more to that, then I would be unable to tell you what it is. What you just said is my understanding of infinity. Something without end. So
it's very. It's just like the natural numbers, right? They don't have an end. Natural numbers go on to infinity, right?
Yeah. So and for
mathematicians have a pretty solid grasp on infinity. Actually, like some of the most certain things that we know about mathematics is the infinite sets and
But what's interesting to me is I get in these rooms, and then everyone wants a philosophical answer to these things from me. And I'm not going to give you a philosophical answer because I'm just giving you my understanding of it as a human. I'm not trying to study all these great philosophers and try to give you some complicated answer. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give you the answer that's coming from what I understand the world to be. I'm not trying to look at others' understanding to come up with complicated answers to give you.
Can you let me ask you a question, free fruit. You say you don't want to give an answer because you would be lying, and to lie about obviously would be wrong, but also it's you don't know, you don't actually know where everything came from. Is that a
yeah?
correct
And the
assessment?
reason I make the claim that there's no God is what I said at the beginning, that God has never communicated with me, and I've never seen God, and there's been no communication between me or God. The same reasons that a lot of the same reasons why I don't believe in other things like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster. It sounds silly, but I don't believe in those things.
I don't believe in those things either, but I don't believe in those things either. But God and Bigfoot, you understand, they're not in the same category. Let me ask you something. Can you be agnostic about everything? Can you be a skeptic? Can you say I don't know to every question?
No, like I told you earlier, that there's things that I know, and then there's things like the God question that I don't.
And what do you mean when you say, like, you know, if I told you Joe Biden is the president, is that something that's true, or is that something that is just true for me, or true for you and me, or true for everyone else, or it's a fact of history? What is that?
No, Donald Trump's the president right now.
Sure. Right.
You know,
exactly.
And so come
4 more years, baby.
Yeah. So after everything's said and the Electoral College decides who's the president, and after the date comes, whenever Biden takes over, if everything checks out, then Biden will be the president at that time. You know.
So you know it's real, right? It's true.
Well, I have what I told you to go on.
Right. But right now, the president is Donald Trump, and you know that. You know that for a fact.
Yeah, from the way that I know things, that would be something that I would know. Yes.
Right, but it's because I also know it's true, right? So it's you would agree that it's something that's true for you and me. It's not something that it's our opinion, right? Whether or not, if I say Joe Biden's the president, well, you know, does that matter? Does my opinion matter? Is my opinion going to change reality?
Yeah, I mean, if your
Is my opinion of if it turns out that Trump remains president, and if I say no, Joe Biden's the president, is that going to change anything? Is that going to change the fact of the matter of reality?
Well, no, it is what the facts are.
Exactly. Reality is like, so what is true regardless of anyone's opinion, right?
Yeah,
the sun is shining. No, if the sun is shining, and I say, well, it's raining. Like, my opinion, my judgment is not going to change. Knowledge is therefore what's true in virtue of outside of my mind, right?
Well, I'll go back to what the truth is, what the facts are. So your opinion might line up with what is true according to the facts.
Right, and what is a fact? Something that is true regardless. It's not dependent on my opinion. It's true regardless of what anyone else says, right?
Yeah, and in order for something to be true, I mean, it has to line up with the facts. I mean, if it does not,
right, it's just what I said. I said that. I said that a fact is just something that.
Yeah, and if there's something that doesn't have any facts behind it, then I can make an assumption about it to be
right,
true.
But you agree that there are
But
facts. That's all I need. Then. That's all you need. If you agree that there are facts, that there are facts.
Assumption is the same because it's like, if you make an assumption, you're taking.
Wait, because we're getting a little bit derailed. But you agree that there are facts, right? That's all. That's at the bottom level. We can agree that there's something that is real and true, and therefore, if there are facts, then you know that they're facts, right? You can't say I don't know. You can't be agnostic about them. That's my point, right?
Yeah, and like when we're talking the God question, you're asking me to know something that happened thousands or maybe millions of years ago, and I'm going to give you the same answer every time as I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing, man. I'm not going to ask you to do that. I think that's where you have it wrong. I mean, God is not some being that got the ball rolling, and tens of billions of years ago, and and we're just speculating about some entity that may or may not have been there 10 billion years ago. God is right now. He's present everywhere. He's omnipresent. He's here right now. He's sustaining everything. He's omniscient. He's omnipotent. Right? God is the God is the lifeline. God is the lifeline to your life, to my life, to the earth, to the universe, to everything that is. Right? He's the reason why everything is developing, growing, changing, evolving, why you're thinking, reasoning, why you have desires, needs, wants. He's everything, right, in a sense.
But I'd be lying if I told you what you just told me. If I told you that God does all these things, but I don't know who God is, then I'd be lying to you if I said that.
Well, maybe maybe then you could agree, right? So before we get into that, right, because this is a bit off the topic, you said that you don't know, like you're certain about some things, but you're not certain about God. But let me ask you something. Your certainty, your ability to know the bottom level reality, right, presupposes that you have access to something. And this something is ultimate, right? It is true in virtue of you have knowledge, right, that is absolute in a sense. That is true in virtue of something. And what is this something? What is this absolute reality that you're speaking of? You have access to certain knowledge. You're not agnostic about it. It's not probable. It's unconditional, right? It's not conditioned. You're obviously not a brain in a vat. You're not in the Matrix. You're not hallucinating, right? So how do you account for you having access to truth?
Yeah, it's based off of my consciousness.
Your consciousness, but your consciousness can you claim that you have truth. It's unconditional. But your consciousness can be deceived.
Yeah,
Is
like
your
for
consciousness
instance,
being
if
deceived
I
right
had
now? Well, you claim that it's not. Well, how do you know that? Well, because you have access to truth.
It's still true to me, even if I had a mental disability and my consciousness was
Yeah, but we
altered.
can agree that it's a bit ridiculous that we obviously know that we're not hallucinating, right? Even if we said we were hallucinating, how would we know we're hallucinating if
let me finish real quick. Like, say I had a mental disability and my consciousness was altered, that the truth would still be what I perceived it to be, even because I would have no control over that mental disability that altered my consciousness.
Why would you call it a mental disability? Maybe maybe that's just how your mind works, right? In order for you to call it mental disability, you're assuming that there's a correct functioning of your mind, right? So that's what I mean.
And as far as I know, I don't have any.
Trying to figure out how is it that you know that you have reliably functioning cognitive faculties? How is it that you know that your brain is going to be working the right way in order to produce true beliefs about the world? He wants you to answer that from your worldview. From his perspective, he's saying that he knows that's the case because God has made him to function a certain way. Now he's asking, how do you know the way that you're supposed to be functioning in order for you to know that you're producing true beliefs?
The only way I have is through my perceived reality. That's
but you
the
agree,
only way that I have.
You agree, Free, that you're not omniscient, right?
Like that I'm everywhere? Is that what you mean by that?
No, that you know everything.
No, I'm aware that I do not know everything.
Right. So if you don't know everything, you're not an omniscient mind. You're not the cause of truth, right? You discover truth, and how could you know that you're, I don't know, not being deceived or hallucinating or insane or whatever, right?
Yeah, like
unless here's the two possibilities, right? Either you cannot know, which makes you a solipsist, or either you have access to something, right? Something by virtue of its very nature, which is absolute reality, absolute unconditioned reality,
No, there are
gives
other
you
alternatives.
gives you other alternatives. I'm not sure about that. I mean,
So
I've
yeah,
thought about it.
pragmatism can provide a theory of instrumentalism without needing access to true belief.
Yeah, but we're just talking about like things like pragmatism. I mean, what is true is pragmatic. What is pragmatic is true. I mean,
Well, no, that's not a necessary thesis for all pragmatic belief. All that is saying, that's making an ontological commitment. You know, a strict pragmatism can say that I know what is useful for me to achieve whatever goal I want to in my day-to-day life, but I don't need to know what the ontological components of things are for me to go about my day-to-day life. I don't require knowledge of that whatsoever. That's not necessary.
But
right, but then we're not doing philosophy.
The way I can tell you.
No, who says that's not doing philosophy? There's very big prominent Christians that advocate that belief. Whether you look at William James, who's really big about pragmatism, one of the biggest founders of pragmatism.
Wait. But if you're just saying that you're forfeiting speculating about reality itself, you're just you just know that something is useful. Well, I mean, something could be useful in your own head. I mean, you know, I can make up something and then it's just useful in my head. It's like a utility, by the way. Utility argument. It's kind of self-refuting, because if you're saying that something is useful, you're saying it's useful for something.
Something amazing playing for this crowd. Had a special connection with them since day one, and I got to the airport and it was like, I don't know, 100, 200 people. They were waiting for me. Since day one, they've been changing my name. I was sitting on the bench and I was looking at my teammates like, oh, that's me, who they want to see.
They're happy to see him.
I don't think I would be overstated to say they love him.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What's your hamster's name?
Ricky Rubio.
Standing ovation from this crowd here at Target Center. Ricky Rubio makes his season debut.
Good players have the opportunity at some point, whether they want to go into free agency, whether they want to be somewhere. The number one thing Ricky wanted is that he wanted to be here.
The first recipient of the Flip Saunders Legacy Award, Ricky Rubio.
The first moment I came here to Minnesota, I thought it was something special between Minnesota and me, and you're gonna see me a long time here.
Birthday as Mikal Bridges misses the three. Ayton's got the weak side rebound. Here's Rubio for three. Ricky Rubio. DeAndre Ayton has the rebound.
The Wizards want to run here. They want to beat Phoenix down the floor. Look how Rubio can pick on penetration. You know, to some degree, Ish is a pass-first point guard, but with the team he's playing with now, got to look for a shot.
Ish Smith, he has 15 points right now, but again, you can't trade buckets at this point. You need some stops. Rubio, game winner. Robinson hit against Brooklyn back in February.
I do.
It was one of those where even before, there was a moment where Bradley Beal said, you got to take Lawson. Was bothered by DeAndre Ayton. Here comes Booker. Rubio, a corner three, and that could be
earlier meetings as 3 point-blank shots from the Mavs, all misses. Rubio sets and fires from deep. Effort. Book, as you might imagine, drawing lots of defensive attention. Rubio drifting to his personal.
You know, better size than him, stronger than him, but he has a distinct advantage against Steph Curry.
Jalen Sports coming in.
Shows it right there.
Ricky unable to get the finish there. Johnson clears on the push to Phoenix. Rubio sets from deep and knocks it down.
And they just try to build on it quickly, and they are more than capable of knocking down 2 or 3 threes in a row.
Rubio on the drive, gets himself right to the rim. Rubio, given the choice, will knock down the little 18-footer. And a big miss early for Dorian Finney-Smith because he had Booker on his hip, and Devin couldn't do anything about it.
Well, and Devin wasn't trying to do anything about it.
Booker and Ayton run into foul trouble. Now he runs into Mikal Bridges. And Bridges takes the payoff pass from Ricky for his
years, people. And then he runs the floor and he gets the. It's not the game plan, but you got to run at him and make him give the ball up.
Rubio takes the handoff. Nice give and go there.
Number 1, Devin.
It's going to be number 5 on Book.
5th personal foul.
It's an art to learn how to play.
Breakout opportunity for Frank Kaminsky. He takes the easy feed inside from Rubio.
Now, Ricky Rubio thought he had an advantage, didn't get it.
Kaminsky had the clean look at the 3, won't get it. Rubio inside, a nice little
personal 4th team foul.
Ricky Rubio, look, for his size now, he's not a little guy.
Saying you still have an opportunity to work on one thing you can, which is your free throw shooting. Ricky on the drive. Can't get the finish. Kaminsky inside.
They're getting a little winded, right? Because they're not used to maybe having these job descriptions while Devin and DeAndre Ayton was out. They believe, as most very good teams do, that they can still beat you late in the game and in the 4th quarter. That's why it's imperative.
We didn't know about until after the game, but kind of collectively pulled his team in there in that 3rd and 4th quarter as Rubio finished there from Landry Shamet.
Shamet snuck DeAndre on that one. That was pretty crafty.
Shamet still trying to work his way back into peace. Turns into the rebound for Rubio.
Almost called Rubio J.J. Redick the way he's shooting that 3.
Boy, this guy has been...
Ricky Rubio. Cross you up. Reggie Jackson.
Rebound trickles right back to DeAndre Ayton. Had a wide open little 12-footer. Passed it up. Rubio will take it left of the lane. This guy pulls it back out.
Smart play there.
Kicks it over to the open shooter, and Rubio steps in, steps back, and
really do.
22.
And most of the shots are good.
They just grabbed by Morris, won't get the whistle. Rubio bumped back into form. There were some questions about whether or not he was actually going to play in the bubble. As Rubio connects with Ricky Rubio, shooting better than 41% from beyond the arc. And if you go back, nice defense there from the rookie Cam Johnson to force another Pacers miss. Rubio on the drive, again contact, and Ricky.
Amazing how a big-time win can elevate you even more.
201.call, 602-379-SUNS. Rubio off the elbow.
And a team makes a run, and the Suns push him right back. Yeah, he wants to get around you.
At 12 points in the victory against Orlando. Pretty pass inside to Ayton, who will look for the and one.
Again, DeAndre Ayton released in the paint. That's an easy one there. He's got some good looks early.
Not a typical 4th and 6 because we don't have the travel. So is Rubio able to get right to the rim? But do you think that's...
Yeah, because of that, it's really, how do you even figure out or try to maneuver?
Right? Going to have to play it much more true to their man. Loose ball pickup for the Suns. 4 on the shot clock. Rubio finding Booker. Gives him 15 points. The Heat with a 60-point first half. Rubio rolls it in. Got the step on Vincent. Ray Crowder staying in the game with those 4 personal fouls. Rubio strides through the seam. Oh, what a great pass by Rubio for his 7th consecutive season.
I like Iguodala running that break too. 3 on 2, executed it well with spacing and getting Crowder involved on that wing for Miami.
This is Devin Booker. Rubio. Oh, Ricky Rubio.
We saw the Suns kind of a slow start Saturday against Miami is a nice spin inside by Ricky Rubio. DIC.
Nice move there. That's what you got to do. Good. But I can imagine you on the hard court when you was growing up that you fought that as well.
Nice feed up top against Miami and the Clippers on Friday.
Imperative. Suns get off to a good start.
Joel Embiid was serving suspensions, and we are running this afternoon from the Visa Athletic Center, and truly running off of the jump ball was their big man outside, leaving the lane wide open for drives, forcing the Suns into rotations. 3 for 3, including that 3 to give him 7.
He's got a nice release. It looks really effortless. Caught napping.
Yep, that's to be good communication. Who's going to go out? Who's covering the man that pops and the one that stays in? Both guys covering the sitting guy, left one open. Good look now to go in front.
Didn't quite work for him in Charlotte. Things look better here.
Up on. This is democratic basketball right now. If you're open, you're going to get it. Anyone can get involved. Even late February when Joel Embiid suffered that injury, Quinn came in, gave the Sixers some terrific minutes. AC Burks helping out Robinson. Rubio on a rope, beautifully delivered to the cutting Mikal Bridges. Free throw already. That last exchange from Booker, career high 9 assists. The Sixers slice it to 4. There's Rubio. When he stands up, forget it. Dead giveaway. He does not blend. Good defense by Neto, but
here he is again, the little step through, contact, no Fabio strong enough to get there. You see him kind of just bringing it across his body right in front of Bridges on the block shot on Hardaway.
Mikal Bridges gets it. Here comes Rubio dancing into Curry and finding Booker inside with a nice feed. Tugged up his first for Phoenix.
Beautiful pass here by Rubio, back cut by Booker to get on the... He was always the last line defense, and he was so vocal.
Good point.
And then you get reward DeAndre Ayton. How about the great hands here? Not good, but great hands. Little fake here, Rubio.
All right, here we go. We're at halftime. You're watching something from Spain, actually. There's a great pass by the aforementioned Rubio inside. The cutting Booker gets it and puts it through. That was a terrific Big 8 guard at Missouri, Melvin Booker. Quick double, Rubio free is good. Booker the assist. Goes Curry dashing into the paint and picked up inside with another rebound for Cameron Johnson. Outside, Rubio 3, good. Bench. Well, I told you back on Monday against Utah, I had 18 off the bench. So
walking buckets. How many back cuts because the Phoenix Suns going to get?
The Suns looking to secure this in an effort to try and claim the season series there in San Antonio later this week, which you look at the standings right now as Murray comes away with a quick steal. Rubio with a nice recovery.
Currently 10th in the NBA in scoring, has the 4th highest field goal percentage. And backcourt player in the NBA, Rubio, the steal, Booker. And first attempt is denied. Here's Kyle, weaving his way in traffic, loses it. It's cut off. Great job there against Bridges. Here's Van Vliet.
Remember, they're a foul away from the bonus.
Rubio, the steal.
One to fall. Cut off by Rubio, an elite defender. Trying to go behind the back, lost it. Terrific defense by Ricky Rubio.
They made us uncomfortable most all of the night. As the Suns come back away, Rubio picking the pocket of Hield right there.
Bringing Cody Zeller to replace Bismack Biyombo.
Cody has his pocket picked by Rubio.
Booker looking for the three.
The Suns cannot allow the Nuggets to get this lead back.
Nice job by Rubio, racing back in transition, preventing another fast break bucket. Bridges on a catch and shoots. Can't get the three. Shows it clears and looking to push. And then Rubio picking the pocket of Buddy Hield.
They need against this aggressive defense here early in the fourth quarter.
7 points in a quarter. Rubio plucks it away for the steal. Calf injury. And as I mentioned, as they head out on this long stretch, is Rubio able to stick a hand in there? That's been the MO of teams of late. Rubio on a tough drive, draws some contact, but won't get the whistle there. Fultz has the favor returned by Rubio.
He's got 10 points already in the quarter. We've only played 5 minutes. He's had 3 40-point games this year.
Rubio forcing the turnover.
Hayward, Waters, Wanamaker, lost it. Carter found it.
Third shot, yet he has a double-double. 12 points and 10 assists for Rubio. Leonard bothered by the double team. Another opportunity here for the Suns. Another steal. Leonard off to the races. Takes it to the house, but misses the dunk. Recovers, runs into Rubio.
That is good. The Raptors trail here early by 5. Powell now driving, stripped to the basketball by Rubio.
Second shot opportunities. Booker misses. Good defense that time by Hardaway Jr., I thought.
Steal, Ricky Rubio.
Ani made this shit.
On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, and I'm him. On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, then I'm him. On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, and I'm him. On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, and I'm him. I went in tripping, I ain't even have a box. I was in for 5 minutes, and a nigga heard the cops. Hopped in the whip, then a nigga went skirt, pedal to the metal till my motherfucking feet hurt. Pull the car over? Shit, hell no. 459 with a blammy, that's an elbow. Went down once, told my mama I ain't going back. Told my mama I ain't going back. I don't see the chopper, so I still got time. If the lights get closer, I'ma squeeze lemon lime. On the phone with the homies, and he telling me to cut. Running red lights, cause a nigga in a rush. Construction up ahead, oh damn, it's a delay. Fuck a main street shit, I'm looking for the freeway. I see the on-ramp, then I'm on that. I'm on that, I'm on that, I'm on that, I'm on that. On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, and I'm him. On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, then I'm him. On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, and I'm him. On the E-way, doing like 110, 12, looking for the suspect, and I'm him.
Go 1, DeMarcus 5, Patrick Peterson went 14, Eric Bledsoe 18, and then Daniel Orton, who actually was pretty skilled for a big guy. He just didn't play very much. And then he was like, all right, you guys are leaving. I'm out of here.
I hold on to Kentucky player stock for the longest. Like no one, there are guys who probably live in Lexington who've given up on Archie Goodwin sooner than I did. I don't know why. I just really like these guys. I'm just like, hey, is Porthus, is he still in the league? You know, could he catch on somewhere?
I know.
I'm still holding out for Malik Monk.
Malik Monk. I thought Malik Monk. Like that draft. I was like, you get Malik Monk at 10 or 11?
Yeah.
This thing's fucking stacked, man. And those are the lessons you always got to remind yourself, because you're sitting there and the guys are going, hey, what do you think about this pick? Or what do you think? Halliburton, can't believe he falls. And you just have to keep reminding yourself, hey, half these guys are going to suck.
Yeah. 7
of these 14 guys that went lottery are likely going to do nothing that's all that impactful. I'm not saying they're going to be out of the league like some of the other back end guys. Okay, final thought. You're a creative guy to watch. We could be working on something here. I don't want to announce anything because we may not be working on something here. But what's your creative outlet for you? Is it to golf and not answer the phone? Or is it to, like, would you write a book?
So what do I do to, like, actually scratch my creative itch, since I scratch it so much at work?
Because you're so good on talking about the shows, talking about movies, growing up.
Jimmy. Thank you, sir. Make cameos. Cole Anthony went number 15 overall to the Magic. And look, Spike Lee, friend of Cole's dad, Greg Anthony, was there celebrating. Now, Fizz, given all of Spike's issues with James Dolan, do you think that Spike is he's a Magic fan now? What do you think?
Not a chance. Spike is Knicks till he died. There ain't no, he can't go cheer for the Magics full time. Obviously, he's going to cheer because of the kid and his relationship with her, but he's a Knick.
All right, moving on. Miss Kleenex. It was an emotional night last night. One of the perks of a virtual draft is that you see all the families. So our perk, what did it mean to you to see all that emotion?
Oh, it meant a lot, Rachel. I mean, you know, these kids been waiting on this all their lives, and being drafted and hearing your name called.
The person who goes number one, what are the expectations of the number one pick?
Just come in and impact the game immediately.
What rattles you? Something has to rattle you.
Being in the dark.
Are you the best player in the draft class? When did you realize, oh, okay, I'm different? So you feel like you deserve to be the number one pick?
Yeah, nobody's better than me in the draft.
This year's draft class is made up of an impressive group who will continue to define the modern NBA player. Basketball superheroes who can do anything on the floor.
Second Husky to be chosen tonight as Jaden McDaniels from his home in Renton, Washington is selected. We told you eventually that's going to wind up in Minnesota.
The Minnesota Timberwolves select Daniel Oturu from the University of Minnesota.
So Daniel
With the 41st
Oturu
pick in the 2020
Minnesota.
NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Trey Jones from Duke University.
It's pretty amazing. Just like we were just talking off microphone, 41 draft picks in the first round and a half, and 4 Minnesota kids in an international NBA draft. Just kind of shows you how far Minnesota youth basketball and high school basketball has come over the years.
Oh, I mean, I grew up in the 80s when, you had guys like Bob Martin and Kevin Lynch, and, it was like, okay, this is fine. And now it's just star players.
It is.
Yeah, it changed. When did it start to change? Chris Humphries, like it started to change drastically. Chris Humphries-ish.
Joel Prisbilla was big time. I can't remember if Joel Prisbilla was a McDonald's All-American or not, but he obviously had like a 12-year NBA career.
That's late
and Chris
90s, right?
Yep,
Prisbilla.
Yep. And then Chris Humphries comes along in the early 2000s and was a McDonald's All-American, set to go to Duke. And then he was probably told by Mike Krzyzewski, definitely come here. We're loaded. We got JJ Redick. We got all these dudes. So you're probably not going to play. And then he decided, well, I'd rather just start and dominate and be a big fish in a small pond. I think that's the way that played out. But yeah, then after that, but on the Gophers front, so Daniel Oturu is the first drafted Gophers basketball player since Chris Humphries in 2004. Think about that for a second. 16 years, no drafted players. Amir Coffey wasn't drafted. Vincent Greer. People are, what about Vincent Greer? He wasn't drafted. He went to Miami Heat training camp.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I guess credit to Richard Pitino for finally breaking that streak. But then some people look around and say, well, why didn't Pitino get some of these other guys that are NBA players?
That's the thing about it. The in-state talent is so high now comparatively. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about Cat and something that Doogie said about Cat. And that's the fact that Cat at some point in time, I guess, is going to need to be coached hard and held accountable. And that somebody's going to have to do this for Cat to maximize his success. All right. I've got some thoughts on this one. This was attempted not well, but it was attempted by Tibbs in some way when he got Butler, right? Like Jimmy Butler was going to come in and show Wiggy and Cat the way, and this is how you work, and this is nose to the grindstone. We breathe basketball, we eat basketball, we sleep basketball, and then we wake up and play basketball. And it went over, pardon my French, like a fart in church. I mean, those guys were like, what's going on here? And look, I hold them accountable too. But here's the grand talking point that I'd like to discuss when it comes to Cat. And Phil, this might fall into what you, I think, told Patrick yesterday on the show in saying that I think Cat might ultimately be a great 2, but he'll never be an alpha 1. I don't know what Doogie is talking about as far as there's going to be this switch that gets flipped at some point in time of holding Cat accountable and coaching him hard, that's going to work. The Ricky acquisition I sort of like, because I do think it brings a veteran presence back here. And I think it brings a guy that Cat probably trusts back here. And I think that he can not be an alpha, but Ricky can solidify things in the room for Cat and the younger players. And I think he can help there. But I am beginning to believe that there's not going to be this magic coach or magic player that comes in and gets in Cat's face and Cat goes, oh my God, you know what? It's Larry O'Brien trophy time for me. I don't think that happens. I don't think that changing people's personality is necessarily possible unless they want to really badly. So I guess I sort of disagree with Dukes in the sense that I think if you get the next hard ass, I'm going to coach you up and you're going to do what I say, I don't think it's going to work with Cat.
No, I agree with you. I don't think, first of all, Cat's an unbelievable player. He's the most skilled 7-foot player that I've ever seen offensively. And there's a lot of skilled. I mean, KG was an amazingly skilled. He couldn't shoot like Cat. I would take KG as an overall player 10 times out of 10 over Cat, and the mindset of KG and sometimes the abrasive but good leadership of KG. Cat doesn't have the demeanor, the personality, the countenance of a star player. Like, you don't need to tell Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, like, you don't need to tell those guys how important defense is. And you don't need to tell those guys to stop bitching at officials every other play when you don't get your own way. Those guys are locked in. Those guys are playing both ends of the court on a regular basis. And those guys, even early in their career, Kevin Garnett, are the ones that are teaching other players and showing other players what to do. And so while I think Karl Anthony Towns is a great asset to any NBA team, and he is one of the 15 to 20 best players in the NBA, despite the defensive deficiencies, I think he's destined because of some of the emotional intelligence issues. And he just doesn't have the same sort of killer leader mindset that the top players who win championships have. And you know what? That's okay. Like, the quicker that we all sort of come to that realization, and the Timberwolves included, the quicker that we can all get to the solution, which is you got to find someone or a group of players that can sort of rise above that, and whether it's finding an actual Batman and making him the Robin, or whether it's like creating some sort of system where you have a bunch of rugged players sort of around him. I think it's dumb and probably short-sighted to say that he can't be a key figure on a championship team because he's super talented. But is he ever going to be the leader on a championship team? I don't think he can be with his personality. That's my 2 cents.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And I think I think he's a highly intelligent, thoughtful, smart person. And in some ways in sports, those things hurt you. But I think
Duncan was.
But I think we also need to get past this whole, if you just find the right guy. I don't think the right guy exists, because I think that you have to want to change, and some people can't change. But back to what you said, it would really be stupid to be like, well, if he can't be that guy, then I guess because look, in my opinion, Wiggins didn't and doesn't enjoy basketball. Okay. Which is a huge starting point problem. Like, if you basically say, this is my job and I'm getting paid a lot and I'm really, really good, but I don't care. Okay, it's done. You're not going to win a championship. I don't think, unless you're like the 8th guy on the team. Like, there's a lot of things going against you that I think have to be identified quickly. And the quicker that you are not given a max contract, and that the team severs ties and possibly gets something back for you in a trade, the better. But Cat's not that guy. Like, I think Cat likes basketball a lot. So I think what we need to see the Wolves do here, and what they probably are trying to do, is settle on what's going to get the most from him. I mean, D'Angelo Russell was obtained in part why? Because he's friends with Cat, because they can probably play off each other, at least offensively, very well. So I think the Wolves are probably on the right track here. But I just think this whole conversation about there might be this magical elixir that comes in eventually. look, Jimmy Butler's a great player, and Jimmy Butler probably went about